What we have heard today is a lot of similar laws in Czech or in Poland or in Germany. And myself, I stay here with, I think, very big experiences in insolvency plans to restructure companies. In 1999, I made the first plan in Germany for a printing company in Bavarian, and it was the first plan all in Germany after the law changed. In 1998, the law in Germany changed from the Konkursordnung into the insolvency law, and these new insolvency law gives the possibility to make a plan to restructure companies with special laws to fulfill the changes in these companies. Here you can see some details of my person, and this is Mr. Krah. He is lawyer and I'm just a business administrator. Here you can see I'm 54 years old and we both live in Dresden. My whole experience is nearly 200 insolvency plans with my team over all industries. Just we have made a dentist, it was a very small company, and food industrial or machineries, everything you can imagine it's possible to restructure about the insolvency law. The crisis in the companies is always the same. It started with a strategic crisis. Your income is not good, and in one manner the market don't like your products, and the entrepreneur said, it's a market problem, it's not our problem. When you have the value of the company at this moment in the first situation of the strategic crisis, the value of the company is nearby 100%. Some months later, you come into the earning crisis. And then the management see at first, oh, my terms are not good, I make losses, but you don't feel that you have to do a lot in the other way, just only you stay there and said, okay, maybe it will get better and better. And the most of the management waits for changing systems. They don't take the chance to go over the insolvency law to restructure their company. They sit down and said, okay, I have a pressure to do something, but I have no idea, and so they wait for the white knight, but normally the white knight doesn't come. In the last form, you come into the liquid crisis, and this is what we have heard here from our speaker before us. It is when you can't pay your invoices. In Germany, we have nearly the same situation like in Poland. There is you have to make a balance sheet about your invoices and your incoming money, and when you have 90%, you can't pay. So you have a less of 10%, then you are in the liquidity crisis. We have some special situations in Germany about the systems of restructuring. In the first, you have out-of-court proceedings. That is just you go to you make a moratorium, but there's one big problem with the moratorium. Everybody has to take the moratorium, and if one say no, the moratorium don't work. Then you have justical proceedings, just in debtor in possession, and yet new, the debtor in possession proceedings is protective shield. That is a special system, but this special system don't work very good in Germany. I have bring you some information from the German insolvency market. Since 2009, the amount of insolvency companies decreased. We have now 21,000 insolvency a year, just only companies. For the natural persons, more than 120,000 people who go in insolvency. But if you see, we have nearly 30% less than 2009, and all my colleagues said, oh, we have no good times, and they have to restructure by themselves, because it is very, very hard to live without the insolvency market. Nearly 3% of the insolvency in Germany comes about insolvency plans to restructure. Most of them will go with an asset deal. An asset deal is nothing else than you sell your assets, and then somebody come and buy them and make the business later. And what's very interesting is this one. It's the quote for the debts. If you are a normal debitor, then you will get nearly 4% of your money. That's all in Germany. So if you have 100 euros spent for trading, then you get 4 euros after the insolvency. Also the banks, they have some secured debtors. The quote is nearly 50%. So it's not a good business for the traders. And when you see which companies are able to use the insolvency right to restructure, normally this is a law for the bigger companies. And here you can see in this case, there are just only and turnover about 400 million euros, then you have a good chance to make an insolvency plan. The smaller one, it is nearly impossible. Nearly impossible, because it is very, very difficult to write an insolvency plan. Now I will give the word to Mr. Krah, and he will show you some systems of the law.
We have changed a little bit our structure to make it quicker. Because if I tell you something on the legal aspects of the plans, and the shifts in the legal system are towards reorganization and not liquidation. So that's the first thing. If you go into such an insolvency case, do you want to reorganize the company or you want to liquidate it? And it is a quite new idea that bankruptcy leads to a reorganization. And when I prepared for today, I saw that the Czech insolvency law has a chapter for reorganization, but the Slovak hasn't yet. Poland has newly since 2015. That's the situation. And I would assume that we will see an increasing number of reorganization through bankruptcy, even in the CEE countries, in the coming years. So that's the trend as I would expect it. So the most codes now offer regulation for reorganization, and those that doesn't will have it in the near future. So I offer a bet for everyone who thinks different. And we can make it with Slovakia. If we go to Germany, we have the insolvency plan, and we have now the debtor in possession, which is the new model, which doesn't work as it should. But there is new regulation even in Germany. I don't want to bore you with details. The trend is that the lawmakers are trying their best, but they are making it too complicated. So from the practitioner side, we would love to see an easier and less regulated code. But that's, I guess, something that we have in all European countries. If we go into the bankruptcy, so we have a preliminary bankruptcy or a provisional proceed. The first thing is we have to distinguish between a voluntary and an involuntary bankruptcy file. As Torsten told you, you can expect about 4% of your debt to get out of such a case. So there is not really an incentive to file against the debtor, so to go into an involuntary bankruptcy. In Germany, the fact is that usually the state or the health insurance, social security insurance, they file for involuntary bankruptcy because it's not their money, and they just do it because they are obliged to do it. The number of voluntary bankruptcies is increasing, and it's the overwhelming number of bankruptcies are voluntary bankruptcies. To file for bankruptcy, you have 3 reasons. It's the same like in Poland. So I just can ask you to remember what our friend from Krakow told us. The first is you have indebtedness or over-indebtedness, which is in practice not relevant anymore as far as you have a going concern. So it used to have a greater importance, but since a reform of the law in 2008, which even changed the way you have to account it in the same way the Polands did it, you now, as far as you get your going concern, indebtedness is not a reason to go into bankruptcy. So we have 2 things. We have the insolvency or the inability to pay. As Torsten told you, that you can pay less than 90% of the claims against you, and which is quite interesting when you want to use the bankruptcy code as a tool for restructuring, is the impending insolvency. That means even if you foresee that you will go into insolvency and that you have a deep economic crisis in your company, you can file for bankruptcy. You have to explain why you think that insolvency is impending, and you have to do a prognosis with a period of up to 12 months, better less. So it's possible even to go under the shield of the bankruptcy code when you are still working, but you see something is coming. And the point is, if you file for bankruptcy, then the court is auditing whether you are bankrupt or not, which is the same like everywhere. What maybe is interesting is that there is a routine information to the prosecutor in every bankruptcy case. So there is a high risk for managers when their companies went into bankruptcy. And so from a practitioner side, so we recommend all managers that they have a insurance that is using the cost for the criminal lawyer. Because it's really expensive. You pay up to 500 euro an hour for a criminal lawyer. And every CEO of a company that went into bankruptcy will have contact with the prosecutor. Usually nothing happens or you don't get sentenced. But it's costly to have the criminal lawyer going to the prosecutor and negotiate that they don't do you anything. So it is part of the game now. If you are in the preliminary bankruptcy and the judge is auditing your company, then the judge has different possibilities how to act within. Interesting maybe is that there is no automatic stay, like in the US. So if the judge wants to protect you from your debtors, he has to make a decision, but it's not automatic. You can already in the time of the preliminary bankruptcy, the judge can set in a preliminary bankruptcy administrator or trustee with different roles. So it can be a strong trustee or a weak trustee. So it's up to the judge what he wants to do. When you are once in the bankruptcy, then and you have a plan, and then you want to bring the plan through the debtors committee, then the creditors committee, then it's interesting that you need groups. So you can make groups of creditors, and the law itself gives 3 groups: the creditors, the subordinated creditors, and the secured creditors. But it makes no sense because you want to get a majority. So it's very useful to create much more groups, and you are quite free in creating groups. So it should be some logic behind the group. So it would be illogical and not allowed to make groups that you say, okay, all creditors that have names that start with M are one group and with Z another, because that has no economic background. But as far as you can give a sound reason, you can create groups. And as you usually know who will vote for a plan and who will vote against the plan, it makes sense to make groups where you have majorities within the groups that your plan will pass the committee's decision. And if you have in mind that usually you get 4% out of such a bankruptcy process, then usually the creditors are quite open for good plans, because usually the value of a company that can be restructured is higher than the assets when you bring it on the market. And so I want to, from my perspective, some ideas what I think is the developments in bankruptcy law. The first thing is that we have a shift from involuntary to voluntary bankruptcy. We had it. The next is that we have a shift from liquidation to reorganization. Reorganization is the sexy thing. The third is that bankruptcy law is becoming a tool of reorganization. If you have a company that is in problem, then you can try to find deals with each and every creditor you have. But you can step into bankruptcy and make a majority decision, which is usually easier and quicker. And it has the big opportunity that you create regulation for everyone, because a bankruptcy file has a legal quality that works even against those creditors who were not part of the bankruptcy case. That means that we will see competition among bankruptcy regulations. Let's go back on my first thing, that we have in Slovakia no legal system for reorganization, but we have in the Czech Republic. So if you want to reorganize a Slovak company, then it makes sense to file for bankruptcy in Prague and not in Bratislava. And we will see such a competition of different regulations as far as the companies are large enough that it tackles the cost. The next is that struggling companies are getting interesting for investors. Why? Because of the low interest rates, we have very high prices for real estate and for healthy companies. So it makes sense to look for struggling companies and bringing them through a bankruptcy and getting rid of all the debt they have, and to restructure it. So the cost of restructuring gets lower. So it is what Dimitri told us this morning, that we have the cost of debt and the cost of default is decreasing because of the new tendencies in bankruptcy, in the bankruptcy law. If you have decreasing costs of default, you can take this risk into your strategy to reorganize a company. And that means that the power within the bankruptcy will move from the administrator to the investor. When you have an investor that leads through the process of bankruptcy, it gives power to the investor, and the administrator or the trustee is just the people who handles it, but it's not the mind behind. So this is from my legal perspective, and now we go into the business practice.
Yeah, thank you, Maximilian. Maximilian said the bankruptcy law is becoming a tool of reorganization, and that is true. You can imagine you have a butcher, you're a butcher, and have one production site with 150 employees, and you have 40 trading houses just in the supermarket. And overall, you have 400 employees. And from these 40 trading houses, just only 20 goes good, the rest make losses. Now you have in the 20 who make losses are nearly 80 employees. And you haven't the money to give the employees the money they have to become to get out of the company. So you can look, and also you have Mietverträge is you have rental contracts with the supermarkets about 20 years. It's normal in Germany. So you can wait for your insolvency. You see every month you have not enough money to pay all your employees or your rental. And as a good entrepreneur, you pay from your own pocket and said, okay, next month it become better, and next month I will wait, and now I make a good business, but in some months you are absolutely poor. And then you can change your situation if you take the insolvency law in Germany, and then you have some special rights. Normalize. In Germany, when you are 20 years into a company as an employee, you have 7 months for more. The employee can't get fired. The employee can't get fired, and you have to wait 7 months. And then, if you make a lot of employees out of your company, you have to pay just also a big amount of money. With the special rights in Germany, you can split this time of waiting just only 3 months. That's all. You have 3 months, and that is the whole period you have to wait for fire the employees, and also the money you have to pay is fixed by 2.5 amounts of money for the normal way. It's hurt hard, but it's business, and there's no progressive power in it to say just we have to wait for something. Nothing will change unless you do it. And when we see our German, just a minute, I have make a lot of sheets, but there is no time to talk about that all, because this is all about practice things you have to do when you go into insolvency in Germany. But I think it's more interesting now, and we have a little delay to talk about this future. I think we have to do a lot of work in the insolvency law to make the insolvency plans for smaller companies, to fit them up. It's too complicated, and it's absolutely too expensive. It's like if you know you need an insolvency administrator, you need a restructuring officer, you need some consultants, you need a controlling, you need a special form of balance sheets. You have to document all the things you do. You have to fulfill due diligence, legal diligence, you make a plan, you need a controller. And when you have a little small company, about 20 or 50 persons, you are not able to pay this. This I think we need in Germany like an insolvency plan light or so on. The so-called protective shield proceedings is not able to reach it. It calls like I go to my debtors and said, please, can you give me time to pay? And then you must need the money to pay him the money he wants to get. But normally, you can't restructure your organization just only with these shield proceedings. You need a normal insolvency situation. And I think the normal administration of a company isn't able to fulfill the things you have to do in an insolvency situation. Because in your studies, you just only learn things about the situation when everything is fine. Yeah? You have a controller, and he said, this is the price of the product. But if you go to a normal company and said, please give me the calculation of this product, he said, yeah, it's the market price. It's the market price. Yeah, okay, but do you know if you earn money with the product or not? And when you say, okay, the insolvency is just the chance to reorganization, but you have no basis on basics to make the decision what product I use in former times, then you have a good storm match, that's all. You can say, okay, the product is fine and I will produce it. But if you go wrong, in this case, you make more losses in the next future. So you have to fulfill all things you have to do in a well-organization company, but normally the companies who go into the insolvency haven't it. And so you build it up in a very, very short time. Normally an insolvency proceeding takes 3 until 6 months. Then you must be finished it. So you have 6 months to reorganization the company, and it is a very, very hard work to do that. I hope that we can come in Germany in a discussion to make the insolvency rights and law a little bit more realized and more near the real situations in the companies. And we have to deconstruct it because if you see, Maxmilian said, the insurances of the boards. Yeah, if you look at your contracts with the insurances, most of them don't include the problems of insolvency. So if you are an CEO or a CRO and you are in the board of the company and you go into the insolvency, you have a big problem with the whole laws in Germany. And if you are made something, you haven't an idea that this is not okay, but in the insolvency situation, something is absolutely new for you, and the normal board has no knowledge about these situations. So we think that the insolvency law will get in another way. We have a really big situation to construct the insolvency rights in a new way for the companies. And today in Germany we just only have 21,000 insolvency in the year, but I think it's normal. Next year maybe we will get more insolvencies. This is what I think we get. Okay, so for my time, I say thank you for your recognition and thank you for being here.